Well, there will be fingerprinting which will take place, but Donald Trump, as you can see in those visuals, was not handcuffed. It's still not clear if there will be a mugshot taken of the former president, but so far we know that the routine case, as far as the arraignment is concerned, that will happen as a routine and quick exercise soon after his fingerprinting is completed, and that will be part of the larger formalities. And soon after that fingerprinting is done, he will be turning himself over to the court where the arraignment will take place, and he will be faced with 34 felony charges. Of course, we know that there will be no parading of Donald Trump in front of the media. Media has also been prohibited from broadcasting this. Several media organizations had requested for the arraignment to be broadcast, but the judge, in fact, declined that. And in some time from now, we should expect the arraignment now to get over. Soon after Donald Trump, he will also be addressing the press conference, but perhaps before he does that, we can also hear from Alvin Bragg, who is the general attorney and has been the prosecutor in this case. In fact, let me also quickly bring in my guest. I'm joined in by Corinne Clark, who's a Republican strategist. Thank you, Corinne. Let me also add to your credentials. She's also the co-founder of freepressfail.com. Corinne, thank you for coming in and sharing your precious views with us and for giving us your time. It's been a historic moment. We've courthouse. He did seem to be very casually walking in. Do you think this entire case will pan out as casually as his gait has been so far?
I do think a lot of us expect it to turn out to be nothing, because every other witch hunt against Donald Trump has turned out to be nothing. He said he was going to turn himself in. That's what he did today, and we'll just have to let the trial play out. What I think is interesting about today is that we finally learned what the charges actually are, but we are still very out of the loop on what the details of these charges mean, what he is actually being accused of doing, and the impact of those actual crimes. We still don't know.
It's interesting when we say that, you know, we all, of course, would want to know what are those 34 felony charges that he'll be faced with, because many Trump supporters have called this a case which is lacking clarity and technicality, and that is one that is very difficult to prove against Donald Trump.
Absolutely. And I was trying to work this out, just learning this morning when Yahoo News broke that it was 34 counts of falsifying business documents. I was trying to work it out myself and figure out what that actually meant, because there's no alleged tax crime here,
all right,
no alleged federal elections crime, and no loan fraud. So I'm wondering which documents of consequence would have been falsified and why the American public should even care about this.
Many have questioned the integrity of Calvin Bragg and the integrity of the Democrats. They've said that there have been far more serious cases against Democrats like Bill Clinton or even his own wife Hillary Clinton, and that this is clearly a witch hunt and political vendetta unleashed by the Democrats. What are your views?
I think actually Joe Biden happens to agree with that line of thinking. Yesterday, he kind of said the quiet part out loud, and he said that this is an attempt to keep President Trump from running for office, and that they will do everything in their power to make sure that even if he does run, he doesn't make it into the White House again. And to me, that proves they completely do not care what the American people want. And if the American people voted for Donald Trump, the Democrats are still going to do their best to keep him out of the White House, even if he won an election. This case is just one step in their grand plan to do that.
All right, and when you say this is a part of the grand strategy by the Democrats, shouldn't the Republicans or the GOP overall be more combative in its strategy? Because so far we've only, as far as the prominent voices from within the Republican Party are concerned, we've only heard Mike Pence, whereas say someone like a Mitch McConnell has chosen to remain mum. Shouldn't there be more voices coming out in full support of Donald Trump? In fact, just days ago, we've had John Bolton come on, somebody who played a prominent role in foreign policy. He's come on to our channel, and he's openly said that that he's very sure that Donald Trump's going to lose election. Why isn't there a unanimous consensus within the Republican Party?
Well, I happen to agree with you. There absolutely should be. I think the American people have made it clear that they know that this is politically motivated. Polls show that even Democrats believe this particular investigation was entirely politically motivated. I know that the establishment on the Republican side, they never have liked Trump very much. And they would rather stay quiet right now because they're kind of hoping the left destroys Trump so they don't have to try so hard to do it themselves. But I think, again, the issue with that is that they're dismissing the will of the people. They're not listening to the voters, and they're not listening to us Trump supporters who know this is a witch hunt, who know that this is an attempt to interfere in our democracy, to take out our chosen candidate so he can't win. I don't think they're going to succeed in that. I think they're actually unifying the party. The base is united. And I do think a lot of those candidates who are staying quiet, they're going to have to unify around Trump because the outrage within the party is so great.
Right. And what do you think will these legal woes for Donald Trump not just mean, before I delve deeper into it, what will it mean for Donald Trump, but what will this mean for the other potential challengers, whether it's a Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, or even someone like John Bolton?
Right now, I think we're going to have to see all of those candidates rally behind Trump, or they don't stand a chance in a primary, which I think they had little chance in the first place. Trump is running way far ahead. Since the news of this investigation broke, he's actually gone up in the polls.
Right.
And I keep saying this, but I think it's because this investigation has reminded people how much the entire corrupt system hates anything to stop him. And that is actually why the American people love Donald Trump. So I think it would be to the benefit of every candidate on the Republican side to rally behind the president right now and show their support for not only Donald Trump, but for the concept of law and order, for democracy. Because what they are trying to do is charge him with a crime to hurt his campaign so that they have a role in choosing the nominee for the Republican Party. We cannot let them do that. We have to show that we are not going to let them interfere in this, and we stand behind President Trump.
You know, unfortunately for Donald Trump, the ghosts of the past are back to haunt him, especially after the January 6th Capitol Hill riots. There's been a lot of foreshadowing of unrest within New York City itself. What will this mean for Donald Trump and the kind of reputation he holds? Even today's indictment, what is the kind of impact do you think it will have within his own supporter base?
I think his supporter base is just going to rally behind him. We've already seen that support kind of consolidate, like I said, with the polls. And I think that will continue to grow as we're reminded the kind of warrior that Donald Trump is, the kind of corruption that he threatens. And the reason that he is a target is because this system has been built to protect elitists that agree with each other. And Donald Trump is not one of those people, and neither am I. And that's why I like Trump. And I think we're just going to be reminded of that throughout this process. He's a fighter, and he's going to remind us how good he is at fighting.
He's a fighter and a capitalist as well, because he's been capitalizing very well on the media frenzy that's been taking place, as well as the public fascination with this arraignment today. And that also explains the kind of fundraising we've seen happen, not just by Donald Trump, but also by the entire Trump family. How successful do you think he is in milking such moments? And do you think that this will in fact only lead to his advantage?
I do think it will be a big advantage for Trump. It's an unfortunate reality, but like I said, it reminds everyone of the corruption that he's fighting. The latest reports show he raised $5 million over the weekend. That is, I don't know how many times, but many more times what anyone else raised this weekend. And that is that support really unifying behind Trump. And a lot of it is an outrage donation to express how upset we are that this system is trying to interfere in our primary, in our elections. And a lot of people are showing their support to Trump to express their outrage with that system.
In fact, Corinne, I'm going to request you to continue staying with me. In the meantime, let me quickly take our viewers through the latest visuals that we are bringing to you. These are the latest visuals that we are bringing to you from inside the Manhattan courthouse, where currently the arraignment procedure is on of Donald Trump. Remember, it is historic because it makes him the first former US president to turn into a criminal defendant. And as you can see, there is heightened security. It's not every day that you see such security levels inside a courthouse in the United States. And today, the Manhattan courthouse has beefed up security levels, as our reporters also been constantly bringing you all those live updates. On the right side of your screen is a former president sauntering inside the Manhattan courthouse, looking extremely confident and accompanied by agents as well. As we know, we are learning from our sources that he is currently in police custody at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and he is in fact completing fingerprint formalities. And just in a while from now, the arraignment will be taking place, a routine and a short exercise for the former president. He will officially become the first current or former, in fact, the first former US president in history to face such criminal charges. Let me quickly go back to Corinne. Corinne, in some time from now, we will also hear a press conference being addressed by Alvin Bragg. Many have questioned his own integrity as far as his role as the attorney in this case is concerned. But why is that the case? Why are especially the Republican voter base and Republicans questioning Alvin Bragg?
I think they're rightfully questioning him because Alvin actually ran on a campaign to take down Donald Trump. He has said this was his goal from the very beginning. And even with these charges, you know, they started an investigation on supposed hush money payments. It seems like they've charged the president with something that might be unrelated to that. Again, I still need clarification on that since they just revealed the actual charges today. But he was looking for anything to use against Donald Trump, a needle in a haystack, just going after him for the sake of going after him. He said he was going to do that. And he's one of those Soros-funded prosecutors who is fulfilling that leftist goal of taking out Trump. So I think it's completely rational to question his motives. And I think that this case will reveal that it was completely politically motivated and nothing to do with law and order.
Right. Those visuals from inside the Manhattan courthouse. Let me also take our viewers through how significant these proceedings are right now. Right now, what you can see, that room, inside that room is Donald Trump. He is right now with the DA, that is the district attorney, Alvin Bragg. And soon after, the procedure will begin. During this procedure, the fingerprinting will take place. A mugshot is also taken ideally, but that in this case, because it's a high-profile arraignment, will perhaps not happen. And soon after, Donald Trump will be beginning the arraignment process, which is of course going to be a short routine procedure. But outside that room, you can see the Secret Service agents who have accompanied Donald Trump because of his status as that of a former US president. Now, here's what you can expect in the courtroom. After he is processed, Donald Trump will be taken through a back set of hallways and elevators to the floor where the courtroom is located. So what you are seeing right now is the district attorney's office. It's not the courtroom. And when he's taken to the courtroom, he'll then come out to a public hallway to walk into the courtroom. Trump is, of course, not expected to be handcuffed, something we've been repeatedly telling you because of his high-profile status. Let me quickly go back to Corinne Clark, who's also a Republican strategist, continues to stay with me. Corinne, the other, of course, side to the story is the fact that many are calling the Stormy Daniels case and Donald Trump's prosecution in this entire case a big, huge mistake. Something that's not only working in favor of too uncertain, and it is standing on a very weak premise. Do you agree?
Absolutely agree. And I think we saw that play out already. Federal prosecutors actually pursued this case as well, came up with nothing, and decided to stop pursuing it. I can't believe that New York has decided that this was worth their time and money. But I think that political motivation for them, it's so personal. This desire to take down Trump is so personal to these leftist prosecutors that they just kept going with it, even though I think the entirety of this country is aware they don't have much of a case.
Many are saying that owing to his legal troubles, which are now four of them, four big legal troubles that we know for sure, there's a conventional viewpoint that it will be easy to defeat Donald Trump. Do you think so?
Absolutely not. Donald Trump is the most popular Republican candidate in history. In 2020, he actually got 11 million more votes than he did in 2016, and that was after 4 years of a witch hunt and accusations of Russian collusion and the Stormy Daniels thing and every single thing that they could throw at him. And we faced an unprecedented election with the pandemic in 2020. The mail-in ballots were a different game. I think we came up a little bit short. Donald Trump will not make that mistake again. He's going to rally his base. We're going to play the game better than the Democrats have ever played it. And I think he will get the most votes of any president in history, legitimate votes. And I'm looking forward to seeing him doing that.
Many are saying that this, while Donald Trump's arraignment today, apart from the indictment, should be a celebratory moment for the Democrats, many are saying that this is also going to be a very anxious moment for a certain section within the Democrats. What do you think is making them anxious?
I think if they've been reading the polls at all, they're pretty much aware that this case is only going to work to the favor of Donald Trump for all of the reasons I've stated before. This corrupt system being against Trump is actually what brings so many supporters to his side. And anyone who can read that political truth should be very nervous about this case, because the more that comes to light, the more that we know about against him is, and all the resources that they've wasted to pursue this fake crime. I think that will make Trump stronger and it will make the Democrats weaker. And they're going to have to come up with a new game plan, because this is not going to take out President Trump, much like the rest of their failed attempts to do so.
Many are giving the example of the Clintons when they look at this case. While there certainly are not too many parallels, but many in fact draw a closer parallel to that of Hillary Clinton's case, and not just what happened with Bill Clinton and the Monica Lewinsky case. But having said that, is that one reason why the Republicans, including Donald Trump, are calling this a witch hunt?
It could be the reason. We've seen the Clintons get away with a number of crimes. I think that a lot of America feels that the elites do not pay for their crimes, while somebody who stands for the American people is being constantly persecuted by this corrupt system who hates them, hates Donald Trump, and that's really because they hate us. I think that the Clinton hush money, we know that's a reality. He paid off accusers, but there's also a really big crime. Hillary Clinton in 2016 actually funded the Russian dossier that led to $93 million investigations into Donald Trump's alleged ties to Russia. They knew that was fake. So not only did they fund a fake memo, they wasted millions of dollars in federal resources to pursue that in an attempt to hurt the Trump campaign and hurt the Trump administration. And we have seen no charges come from that. We haven't even seen a full investigation of that. So I think Trump supporters, and actually just American citizens in general, they don't have to be Trump supporters, they can draw a conclusion from that to the unfair standard that is being set by this Justice Department.
All right, Corinne, many thanks to you for joining in and sharing those very precious thoughts with us. I truly appreciate here at CNN News 18. And with that, let me quickly introduce my second guest, Crystal Knight, who is a Democrat strategist, also a former political director, Priorities USA, and the founding executive director of Emerge Tennessee. Many thanks to you, Crystal, for joining in. Today, what I observed as far as the Manhattan courthouse is concerned, not only has it been flocked by Donald Trump supporters, but also an anti-Trump base that was in fact carrying banners with cuss words for Donald Trump. Do you believe that, do you think that what United States is now witnessing is a highly polarized state, something which we've not witnessed so far, even if we were to compare the United States back in January of 2021?
Well, I do agree that the United States is highly polarized. I think it started, when Donald Trump took office, and really before Donald Trump took office, while he was running for office, that's when it started. I don't think that the charges levied against him are without merit. I do believe that if there's something that could be found. This DA has found it. The question is, will these charges stick and will he actually be indicted? That's, another part of this case and another part of this story that we have yet to determine.
As far as the Stormy Daniels case is concerned, this entire case for which he's being arraigned today, many political analysts have said that this is a poor test case to indict a former US president. What are your views?
Well, I don't think it's a protest case. I think, there are things that are being alleged that Donald Trump did. Is it illegal to pay off someone for a personal matter? No, people do that every day, all the time. But is it illegal to do it in hopes that this person does not reveal things so that you are able to get elected? That is the question right now, is that did this hush money, was it coming from campaign funds? Was Michael Cohen reimbursed from campaign funds? And the way that they disclose this on the FEC forms appears to be improper. That is the question at hand. And so as we begin to uncover and discover exactly what the 24 plus indictments are, we will learn how the charges will affect him moving forward.
All right. And do you think that this is a day which also signifies the strength of the US justice system? And is this the beginning of Donald Trump's legal woes, or will this just end at this that we're witnessing today?
Well, I mean, we don't know yet. I hope that it's the beginning. There's another case that is much stronger in the state of Georgia,
Right.
where Donald Trump attempted to really overturn the election results by asking the Secretary of State to find more votes for him. I think that that case is much stronger on its face than this case. But, what sometimes happens is there's a domino effect. One thing can occur in one place, and then it triggers something else in another case or another state. And so I don't think that his legal troubles are over. I think this is only the beginning.
All right. And when you say it is only the beginning, let's talk about the political ramifications of this. What do you think this will mean, before I go on to for the Democrat base, but also for firstly for the grand old party, which seems to still not be resting all its hopes on other potential challengers. I know many of them are yet to announce their presidency campaigns, but there are a host of them, whether it's a DeSantis or a Pompeo or even a Mike Pence. How do you see this, in fact, panning out for the other potential GOP challengers?
Yeah, I think many of them are expecting that this case and others will provide so much negative attention for Trump that it drowns him in his presidential race. I think that, Asa Hutchinson, the governor or former governor of, I think
Right.
it's Mississippi or
Arkansas.
Arkansas, I can't
Yeah.
remember. He announced recently over the weekend that he intends to run for president. Obviously, Nikki Haley has already
Right.
announced. So I think a lot of would-be candidates are waiting to see what happens. But I expect, by the fall of this year, we will know as many candidates that intend to get into the race will. I don't think that this case hurts Donald Trump's chances of continuing to run or even being elected. But again, we don't know and have all of the information and the details yet.
Absolutely. And when we also talk about the grand old party, many have questioned the silence of senior leaders like Mitch McConnell. They're saying that that only goes on to convey that Donald Trump doesn't have that kind of unanimous support, which probably his arraignment could have utilized to rally up or unify the entire grand old party. But that is not something that we've seen. While we did hear a Mike Pence step out in support of him, but we've still not heard anything from other senior leaders like a Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've always said or stated that Trump has a chokehold on the GOP, and many of the leaders are silent around what is happening. And if anything, Donald Trump has pushed many party leaders to speak out for him. People like, Governor DeSantis, he thought that he should speak out about these indictment charges, even though DeSantis is already declared, or it's inevitable that he will run against him in the primary of next year. But I think it's telling that, while many of the GOP leaders may not agree or like Trump, they're unwilling to be on record against him. And I think that is the danger of a Donald Trump. I think that's the danger of another presidency, is that so many will disagree in silence, but publicly they are silent.
Right. And let's also talk about the justice system today. Do you think that when Mike Pence says that this is going to send the wrong message, especially for the autocracies or dictators around the world, as far as the US justice system is concerned, and today Donald Trump's arraignment is concerned, it's not going to go down well for the United States when it comes to other dictatorships? And he said that we will in fact be counted in the league of those dictatorial nations. Do you agree with Mike Pence when he says something like that?
I don't know. I really don't agree with that statement. I think, Donald Trump does not hold public office. He is a private citizen. Now, he is a public figure that is a private citizen, but right now. And so the U.S. Justice Department, our justice legal system, can do what it pleases with someone who is a private citizen. I think, if anything, this sends a message that what you do on your campaign, whether you are in office or out of office, does have ramifications. Yes, this case has taken, 6 years? But I think if we don't start now, we venture into a dangerous path of where we're able to let former leaders and former elected leaders, or even potential leaders, do illegal things while they hold office or as they're attempting to seek office. And I don't think it sets a good precedent. I think the other thing, as it relates to our international relations and what other countries might do or think of, there have been many countries where they have decided to, bring charges against their either sitting member of Congress or office, or former members. And so I think it depends on the strength and the will of the people in office in these different countries. But we know that America continues to lead in many of the things that we do. And so I think this is sending a signal to other countries across the world.
Absolutely. And when we talk about his indictment, the sort of political ramifications of it, there's a lot of talk about how we've seen a rise in his popularity as far as the polls are concerned. What explains that rise in his popularity and that public fascination? Because remember, all the news channels, including us, have been going live on all the visuals that have been coming. Yesterday, we've seen Donald Trump's live footage being flashed all over the TV screens when he was leaving for New York. And of course, today is the big day when he's going to be arraigned. And needless to say, this is important because it is historic as well. Never ever have we seen a US president turn into a criminal defendant. But having said that, what explains the rise in his popularity, something that he's been capitalizing on through fundraising campaigns?
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump is a grifter. He uses any kind of media, good or bad, to raise money. He uses any kind of media, good or bad, to attack the media. He uses any kind of media, good or bad, to gin up support with his base. That is the Donald Trump playbook. We have seen it before. We will see it again. I think the polls slightly rose once Donald Trump made the announcement that he would be arrested. But I expect that these polls will taper off and people will really look at Donald Trump for who he is, a criminal, almost mastermind who's able to get away with many things. But if he's indicted, then that reign comes to an end. And so while it may be popular for him to have this bad news and hundreds and thousands of people, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of people have shown up in the streets of New York, this will not always be the case. There will be a day where Donald Trump will fall.
Right, but many are saying that this could very well work in his favor because as I said, to begin with, the Stormy Daniels case seems to have been a debatable case for both ends of the spectrum. It doesn't seem to be a very convincing case for several political analysts who say that, who've still gone on to question that it is not one case that deserves indictment of a former US president. I mean, these are all columns and political analysts who have been writing and talking about it extensively. What will this mean for the Democrats? Because we know that there's a President Biden who's being seen as a weak figure at the moment, because they're saying that he is way past his age to run for a second term of presidency. And not just that, there are questions plaguing him with regards to the US economy. Will he be able to sort of battle this kind of frenzy that Donald Trump's already milking at the moment?
Donald Trump is considered retirement age. Donald Trump is considered old by American standards. He's also considered to be a senior citizen. And so we already have a president who is of late age in the White House, and Joe Biden. And so if Donald Trump believes that he is much more equipped, I think he's delusional at best. I don't think that his presidency, if elected, will fare well, because we already know what kind of president he will be. He will be xenophobic. He will be discriminatory. He will be sexist. And then as it relates to the economy, he's already shown that he cares about the 1% or the upper class in this country. And so he would likely strike, or turn back regulations as it relates to banking, making sure that the wealthy are wealthier, putting provisions, cutting taxes for the people who have the wealthiest amount, or who are the wealthiest in this country. And so Donald Trump is not, I know he bills himself as, a person for all America and all Americans, but really he bills himself in actuality through policy as a person who is focused on the most elite in this country and protecting the rights for them to continue to make more money in this country. So what do I think about the economy under him? I don't think about it. I don't think that it will be stronger.
Do you think that Donald Trump is going to be the easiest Republican to be defeated if he Democrats in the future? Because many are attributing an easy defeat for him due to his myriad of legal problems. Do you believe that he will be an easy target for the Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, I think Donald Trump will be tough. I don't think he'll be easy, but he is a fierce component. And so I think all of his legal troubles just adds to the negatives against him. But we don't know if Donald Trump will make it out of the primary. Right now, he is the favorite person to win, but he could very well be beaten by a Joe Biden, because Joe Biden does intend to run for re-election. And so I do believe that Joe Biden is the best person that can beat Donald Trump.
Why do you say so? Because we've not really heard Joe Biden get very vociferous about this entire indictment. He doesn't, on the contrary, while Donald Trump is milking his own indictment and the arraignment today, Joe Biden doesn't seem to be doing so.
Yeah, I mean, this is not our fight. This isn't a Democratic Party fight. This is something that we speculate on. This is something that political pundits like myself can talk about.
It's a political fight as well.
Right, but it's something that Donald Trump is using this to raise money. At the end of the day, as much as Donald Trump talks about how much money he has continued to raise money off of all of the media frenzy. And that is what he will continue to do. I think until Joe Biden announces that he's running for re-election, he has to continue running the country. That's what the people of this country elected him to do. And he has to focus on the job in front of him. What Donald Trump does between now and when Joe Biden announces for office is just political fodder. It's something that the party can, put it in its cachet to use when it's appropriate. But right now, there's really no purpose in Joe Biden commenting or making a statement about what is happening with Donald Trump. If he would do that, it would just feed into more of the media frenzy around Donald Trump, which is absolutely what he wants.
All right. And in fact, let me quickly take our viewers through all the latest visuals that are coming in. I'm going to, in the meantime, request you, Crystal, to continue to stay with me. Right now, you can see the Secret Service along with the New York police are all stationed outside the Manhattan courthouse and inside the Manhattan courthouse. On the left side of your screens, you can see the Secret Service is currently stationed outside the DA's office, and that, as we all know, is Alvin Bragg, who's pressed charges against Donald Trump. But this is the district attorney's office, and this is in the same building as that of the right side of your screens. You can see Donald Trump enter some time ago. And after this, as we know, the processing is currently on. What is the processing all about? Let me tell you. This is a high-profile case, which also goes on to indicate that there may not be any mugshot of the former president being clicked. As we've also been told earlier that there will be fingerprinting of the former president that will be taking place. As far as the handcuffs are concerned, that was another benefit that was provided to the former president because of his status as the former president. He was not handcuffed. There, on the right side of your screen, you can see those visuals. Donald Trump entered the courthouse looking very confident and walked in accompanied by Secret Service agents. Now, after the processing happens, he will be taken to the courtroom where the process of the arraignment takes place, and that's where he is expected to be brought to the courtroom. The indictment will be unsealed. Remember, there's a lot of mystery surrounding the indictment. There are 34 felony charges that Donald Trump will be faced with. And what are those felony charges? This is something that will now enter the public domain. So far, they were sealed by the grand jury, and today they will be unsealed. After he is arraigned, Donald Trump will almost certainly be released on his own recognizance. It is possible that conditions could be set on Donald Trump's travel. But having said that, we know for sure that Donald Trump will then be leaving the courthouse and will be headed back to Mar-a-Lago, where he will also be addressing the press conference. Let me quickly go back to Crystal, who continues to stay with me. Crystal, in a case like this, while the Republicans are crying foul, including Donald Trump, saying that this is a political witch hunt meant to only destroy the Make America Great Again movement, the fact is that there's a lot of mystery around those 34 felony charges. Do you think once they are unsealed, there'll be greater clarity in terms of the meat and the metal in this case?
Absolutely. Right now, we're just speculating around, what happened between him, Michael Cohen, and Stormy Daniels. But until we're able to really read through what the charges are and why the DA decided to bring forth those charges, this is all just speculation. We can understand what was actually illegal in what he did, how it violated federal law, how it violated campaign law, how, the statements that potentially Stormy Daniels gave, any potential statements that Michael Cohen provided as well. So we don't know what evidence exists in this case. Again, we're always speculating until it becomes unsealed. But once it does, if Michael Cohen can prove, and Stormy Daniels can prove, that the money was given or was paid out so that it would help Donald Trump get elected, that should be a clear violation, particularly the way that it was the way that it was recorded on his FEC campaign finance report. That's another thing, because that is a clear violation of campaign finance law.
Right. Crystal Knight, thank you so much for joining in here on CNN News 18 and sharing your precious views. We thoroughly appreciate them. In the meantime, let me quickly go back to Erica, who continues to report from outside the Manhattan courthouse where Donald Trump is currently being arraigned. Erica, we've seen those visuals of Donald Trump enter. Currently, it seems like he's still at the DA office. Could you take us through the process?
Of course. So like you said, Trump is currently being held at the DA's office. Right behind me, however, police have formed the formation of 2 lines as opposed to the 1 line earlier today. Other than that, updates on Trump as he was arriving in the motorcade, he actually took to his social media platform, Truth Social, to talk about how surreal the experience is and express his disbelief at being arrested. Right now, crowds have quieted as we all await in eager anticipation as to what exactly the indictment is and those charges against them as we wait for those to be unsealed. Updates on President Biden, he talked about he is currently on top of this arraignment, but it is not his first priority. The White House press secretary talked about how his priorities rather lied in the conversations he is going to be holding later in the day about AI.
All right. And as far as the current procedure is concerned, after the DA's office, how much time should the entire arraignment take? There will be fingerprinting involved. What will be those concessions? I know that, these are points that we've been reiterating time and again, but it's important for the benefit of all our viewers who are tuning in on this live coverage.
Of course. So we know that the concessions for Trump is that he will not be doing the perp walk and he will not be handcuffed. He was not handcuffed as he was accompanied by federal agents, the Secret Service, him and protecting him throughout this entire arraignment process. Another thing that I will say is that he is currently at
All right, well, we'll try and reconnect with Erica, but she seemed to have given us quite a perspective. All right, Erica's back. Erica, please go ahead.
Yes, apologies for that. I will say that he's currently at the DA's office, and that's where fingerprints will be taken. It is still unclear whether a mugshot will be taken as well. However, the arraignment itself is expected to be it's not something very former President Trump rather, is expected to return to his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida after the arraignment to give a statement of his own.
Right, and we all know when you talk about Donald Trump giving that statement of his own at Mar-a-Lago, it's very apparent that Donald Trump's also trying to capitalize on this entire situation. But we've seen a highly polarized United States at the moment as far as New York City is concerned. And so far, whenever there was something pertaining to Donald Trump, we would, as far as the rallies are concerned or the Republican rallies are concerned, we only see Trump's supporter base. But today, it's quite a surprising sight because we are seeing an anti-Trump bloc also gathering over there, which was very apparent from those banners that they were carrying with cuss words for Donald Trump. So that goes on to indicate that there's not just a supporter base waiting outside the Manhattan courthouse, but also an anti-Trump base over there.
That's true. So in the park across the courthouse, there are voices from both pro and anti-Trump protesters. And of course, shirts and hats and flags all bearing different things. You have your standard MAGA hats. That's Make America Great Again on the Trump end. But you also have protesters who are there opposing those that are there to support Trump. However, despite this polarization, even in the protesters, they are relatively peaceful at the moment, and the New York Police Department is doing all that they can to ensure that everybody on either side is able to peacefully exercise their right to protest.
Right, and when we talk about the right to protest, what has been the view of various Republicans? While we've heard Marjorie Taylor Greene, rally up support for Donald Trump. Donald Trump, in fact, has been equally vocal on his own social media platform. But having said that, have you heard voices from other Republicans calling out for protesters to come and protest in favor of Donald Trump?
Well, we do know that this arraignment has drawn numbers. It is sort of this rallying point for Republican supporters to come behind Trump. However, the point as to whether other notable Republican voices, so far today, it has only been George Santos and Marjorie Taylor Greene who have made their appearances in the park. But it seems as though their own appearance, their actual appearance, own support of Trump being here. So because those are two very high profile individuals, that's where majority of the attention was focused on.
Right. And when you talk about the attention being focused on, how are the Democrats processing this entire situation? We've heard the New York governor come out and in fact extend a warning and a word of caution for all the Republican supporters over there, and not just the supporters of Donald Trump, but even the Republicans over there, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, announcing openly that she will come and protest all the way from Georgia to New York City. But having said that, what is the sentiment within the Democrats, and as far as the warning is concerned, what does this mean for the Republicans and the political polarization that we've been witnessing so far?
Well, we do know that Eric Adams spoke earlier and talking, especially calling out Marjorie Taylor Greene and just issuing that warning that protests should be peaceful, that New York, there should be no rabble-rousers here, and that New York is our home, so it is not a place that where. So Adams, along with President Biden, expressed their faith in the New York Police Department to keep the peace. And so far, it seems as though they are successful.
Right. And many have questioned that Donald Trump has, in fact, President Joe Biden, I beg your pardon, President Joe Biden has not been very vocal, because they've drawn a sharp contrast between how Donald Trump is, in fact, capitalizing on his own arraignment. The US president, who can capitalize on him, has not done so by not being vocal enough. Could this arraignment, in fact, backfire for the Democrats?
Well, it could backfire in the sense that you are bringing up that perhaps because this is a rallying point for Republicans, Trump supporters may come together and really boost his position in the 2024 presidential elections. He is currently the front runner, and numbers, his lead has actually increased from the other GOP candidate, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis. So in that, it could actually act as positive publicity for Trump, as his supporters decry this entire proceeding and cite it as political persecution.
Right. And when you talk about that positive publicity, how apparent has been that positive publicity? I know that the fundraising's been working very well for Donald Trump. We've also heard of his popularity soaring high, something that's been apparent from the polls. Could you take us through how this is working in favor of Trump?
To do right now was look at how much funds his campaign has garnered. They have since raised $7 million since this entire political storm really began. So you can already see people pouring out their funds in support of the former president. There, like I said earlier, there is also no shortage of merchandise, especially Make America Great Again merchandise. And this is something that amplified by President Trump himself, as he continues to go on social media to post, talk about his disbelief at the fact that a former president is currently held under arrest.
Right. And when you talk about a former president being under arrest, this is indeed a huge historic moment. Never ever has the United States seen something like this, and yet there doesn't seem to be a unanimous consensus on the arraignment of Donald Trump. We haven't seen that unanimous consensus, in fact, as a matter of fact, within the Grand Old Party itself, because so far, as far as the prominent voices are concerned, we've only heard a Mike Pence step out in support. But what about a Mike Pompeo? What about a Ron DeSantis? They all have chosen to remain mum. Many are questioning even someone like a Mitch McConnell. Why have they chosen silence?
Well, I think that it's really a matter of waiting to see where exactly this goes. You know, whether Trump is able to spin this arraignment in his favor. So far, based on the amount of funds he was able to raise, it seems to be working. One thing is for sure, however, he said that he does intend to continue the 2024 presidential campaign, because despite this arraignment, this indictment, he is not prohibited by the US Constitution for running for president, because the only three requirements really are that you're above 35 years of age, you've lived in the US for more than 14 years, and that you're a natural born citizen. So there's nothing holding him back from that.
Right. And how much rests on today's arraignment as far as unsealing those charges are concerned? Quite a host of them, over 30 of them. Will they now sort of break that notion that people have that this isn't a case which has too much clarity and is too technical to be proven?
Could you repeat that? I think my audio is breaking up.
Erica, I want to know how much rests on these charges which will finally be unsealed in today's arraignment. Because remember, there's been a lot of mystery surrounding those 34 felony charges. How much rests on the unsealing of those charges? As we speak, there seems to be some activity, in fact. But Erica, I'd like you to share your thoughts.
Well, everybody is waiting for those counts to be unsealed, of course, but whether or not whether these counts will shake the loyalty of Trump supporters is something that remains to be seen. But many people, including those from other New York boroughs, have come here to Lower Manhattan to express their support. People have taken to Twitter to express their support for the former president, no matter what the crime is. So it seems as though their loyalty will not be shaken so easily. But of course, that all remains to be seen.
All right, as we speak, Erica, we have Donald Trump now finally exiting the DA's house, the DA's office. I'm so sorry. As you can see, he was accompanied by the Secret Service, and now the process will begin. So far, he was in the District Attorney's office, and now the process of his fingerprinting is going to take place. Of course, as we all have been saying, that the mugshot, which is also taken in such a case, will not be happening. That is part of the concessions of him being a former president of the United States. There was a fleeting glimpse, the expression seemed to be puzzling us, because he seemed to have a very stony gaze at that moment when he exited the DA's office. But now, as we know, after the fingerprinting is over, he will be moved to the courtroom. After the process is done of fingerprinting, he will be taken through this back set of hallways, which he seemed to have moved to outside the DA's office. And if you could see, he turned to his left, and he will be taken through this hallway, which will be first moving towards kickstarting that process of fingerprinting. There will be no mugshot taken, and soon after, he will be moved to the courtroom. As you can see, there's heightened security even outside the DA's office. There's a Secret Service and the New York police accompanying the heightened security over there. I do seem to be noticing some camera people as well. We don't know as yet if they're all right. They just could be part of the team that will be conducting the process of fingerprinting. Now, as far as the courtroom is concerned, this is where the arraignment will take place. He'll come out to the public hallway to walk into this courtroom, and do not expect Donald Trump to get handcuffed during any of these formalities which will be taking place. And when the arraignment finally happens, when Donald Trump reaches the courtroom, that's when the envelope will be unsealed. The charges are going to be finally revealed in public domain, because so far there's a lot of mystery surrounding those felony charges, 34 of them, as we are learning from reports. In the meantime, let me also quickly go across to my guest. Let me introduce my guest. I'm now joined in by Orlando Sanchez, who is the founder of Texas Latino Conservatives. Thank you so much, Orlando, for joining in on our live coverage today. Much has already been spoken in American media. They're calling it a historic moment, one that's never been witnessed, unprecedented indeed. But how do you see this panning out for 2024?
Well, I think that former President Trump continues to get tremendous media attention. As you know, the entire world now is focused on this circus that is going on in Manhattan. And it's just going to make sure that he is the ultimate winner in the March 2024 primary for the Republican primary for the nomination to President of the United States.
And when you say that, are you also questioning the hopes for other potential presidential candidates like a Ron DeSantis or a Mike Pence or a Mike Pompeo and several others, of course?
Well, as you know, Mr. Pompeo, Mr. DeSantis, Nikki Haley, former vice president, none of them is on the news. The only thing you see all day is Mr. Trump, just like many years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago, the media gave Mr. Trump tremendous attention, and that's why he won the primary. The media is repeating the same thing. The world is giving him all the time he wants and needs.
All right. And why would you draw parallels of what happened in 2016? Because this is what the Democrats have to say, that it's unfair to draw parallels with what happened in 2016 because he was not even the president back then. And in fact, much has happened after his presidency.
Well, and he's not the president now. He's a former president. And again, he continues to garner all of the attention. In fact, he gets more attention than President Biden gets. And so this is going to ensure that he wins the Republican nomination in the primaries in March of 2024, making him the Republican nominee. The only difference, of course, is that he's being pursued at the federal level by a Democrat, a U.S. attorney, in Manhattan by a Democrat prosecutor, and in Georgia by a Democrat prosecutor. That's the only difference.
All right, fair enough. But when you say that, do you think that as far as the Democrats are concerned, have they failed to galvanize this in their favor? Because we've not heard many vociferous voices come out from the Democrat base. As far as the Democrats are concerned, even President Joe Biden has not been very vocal in sort of attacking Donald Trump or milk this to his advantage.
Well, there's really nothing to attack. In this country, it's very easy to be indicted by a grand jury. In the grand jury process, Mr. Trump and his defense team are not present. Only the district attorney. And the district attorney can say anything they want with very loose evidence and seek a indictment. The real test will come in a trial if one happens. Mr. Trump's lawyers will ask for this case to be dismissed. It will be appealed. It will go on and on and on. And my prediction is that this is a very, very difficult case to win for the district attorney in Manhattan. First of all, we have the statute of limitations in this country. And then number two, we don't know what the charges are because they haven't been unsealed. But they're probably not going to be successful at the trial level if it ever goes to a trial.
All right. In fact, many political analysts are questioning that to indict a former president of a country, there has to be a stronger case than that of hush money payments done to an adult film star. Do you think that this is not the best test case to have indicted a former U.S. president?
Well, that's exactly right. And that's why the Democrats are so quiet. Many Democrats did not want this. They didn't want Mr. Trump to get the media attention. They believe it is a weak case. Professor Dershowitz at Harvard Law School believes it is. And polls in the United States, even CNN polls show that 70% of the American people polled believe this is pure politics. It's not good for this country that we start attacking presidents and former presidents on very weak and questionable charges. If Mr. Trump had truly broken the law, and by the way, paying off Stormy Daniels is not illegal. It happens all the time. And so what the district
But
attorney
Orlando,
in
I'm
Manhattan is
sorry
charging
to
him.
interrupt you there, but it's not just about paying Stormy Daniels, and I agree it happens all the time, but it is about money that was involved with the fundraising campaign, right?
Well, if that's the case, because he was a federal candidate, the Federal Elections Commission is in charge of enforcing federal campaign laws. Notice that this is the Manhattan Attorney General. This has nothing to do with a violation of federal election code. That would be a different case. This case is surrounding entries, business entries. And, you know, anybody that keeps books for a multi-million-dollar operation, there are mistakes that are made. And so the question is, can the district attorney prove that they were intentional, or were they just accounting errors?
Right. I'm sure that Michael Cohen's testimony is going to play a very significant role over there, and much will be revealed once those felony charges are unsealed. But having said that, it's already apparent when you look at the view outside the Manhattan criminal court today. There are two extremely polarized groups. One is, of course, a strong Trump supporter base. On the other, anti-Trump protesters. In fact, they're carrying banners which have cuss words for Donald Trump. What goes on to show this kind of polarization? Do you think the kind of polarization that we are witnessing as a result of the arraignment of Donald Trump only goes on to indicate the kind of clout he commands over America today? Like it or hate it, you can't ignore it, as they say.
That's correct. I mean, Mr. Trump has tremendous following among primary Republican voters across the country. Make no mistake. But let me give you a little history. American politics has become got you politics. And it started many, many years ago when a Supreme Court justice by the name of Bork was nominated to the Supreme Court. We call it he got borked. And then after that, the Republicans impeached Bill Clinton. And then after that, the Supreme Court justices lately have had to go through political battles, which they shouldn't have to. And now the Democrats have indicted Donald Trump. Believe me, there will be consequences. And the Republicans will now go after Mr. Biden and his son for their relationships with the Chinese government.
All right. And when you say that, if we were to look at the grand old party, does this kind of silence that we've witnessed in the past few days, and I will again come back to the fact that only as far as the strong Republican voices are concerned, we've so far only heard a Mike Pence come out in support of Donald Trump. We've not heard Mitch McConnell speak in his favor. We've not heard Mike Pompeo or even a Ron DeSantis come out and support him when he is a Florida governor. But having said that, the silence that the Republican Party is maintaining right now over this arraignment only goes on to say that there's no unanimous consensus for a man who belonged to their party or belongs to their party and has been a former president of the United States.
No, I don't think so. First of all, Governor DeSantis said that he would not be involved if the New York district attorney requested an extradition. So Ron DeSantis has spoken up, as has Mr. Pence, as have others.
No, but
those that are in elective office.
Mitch McConnell, who's a Senate leader and wields considerable authority as a Senate leader, his voice matters, and he's remained mum.
Well, that's correct. And everybody knows that Mitch McConnell's relationship, the majority leader in the Senate, and Mr. Trump was not the best. But that's only one person. I'm sure that as we get closer to the Republican primary, you will be hearing from other Republicans.
Right, but when you say he doesn't have the best relationship, also goes on to indicate that there are cracks within the grand old party as far as relationship between Donald Trump and other potential senior Republicans or other potential challengers for 2024 are concerned.
Well, yes, that's true with any party. There's cracks between the relationships between Mr. Biden and other Democrats. I mean, not all Democrats get along and not all Republicans get along. That's just the nature of politics.
Right. Fair enough, fair enough. Orlando, that brings me now to the kind of silence that we've seen prevail over the Democrats. Many are saying that they're only going on to prove the kind of shaky ground that they themselves are standing on, because as everybody's been questioning President Joe Biden's age, they're also going on to say that he has a weak position considering that the US economy is already in shambles, and that Donald Trump is the only potential person who could have challenged him. Is that a scenario that you agree with? Is Donald Trump the only potential person who could challenge him, or is he also going to be facing a lot of trouble because of the legal woes?
Well, remember, there will not be a trial anytime soon, not within the next year, maybe year and a half. Now, the case could be dismissed, but there will not be a trial. Mr. Trump will not be tried on these charges between now and the 2024 election. That's number one. Number two, I remind everybody that in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan asked Jimmy Carter, the sitting president, "Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?" And if Donald Trump becomes the Republican nominee against Joe Biden, all he has to do is ask the American people, "Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?" And it's lights out for Mr. Biden. Remember, China just flew a balloon across the United States spying on our military installations, and Mr. Biden did nothing until the balloon got off on the East Coast after it had traversed the United States. He has cozy relationships with China. His son is involved with China. His brother's involved in China. The economy in the United States, the inflation is bad. Fuel prices are high. Interest rates are climbing. Banks are failing. The southern border of the United States is experiencing 2.5 million illegal entries into this country. Mr. Biden will not be able to sustain those charges against him.
Absolutely. And in fact, I wanted to, it's interesting you mentioned about the Chinese spy balloons. Do you think that, in fact, Donald Trump, what we witnessed during his time as a US president, his entire policy as far as foreign policy, or his approach towards foreign policy, was often lauded, even though it was one which was very stringent. Is that something that could also work in Donald Trump's favor? Because we all have been seeing how Joe Biden has in fact been receiving a lot of brickbats for his foreign policy, especially when it comes to the issue of not being able to maintain a more diplomatic stance as far as the war is concerned towards Russia or even towards China.
Absolutely correct. I mean, not only do we have the Russians invading Ukraine, we have North Korea now beginning to launch nuclear missiles again and test missiles. We have the Chinese flying spy balloons across the American hemisphere,
and in fact,
the
Chinese are in fact capitalizing on the US withdrawal from the Gulf.
That is correct. And so I think that Mr. Biden is seen as very weak on international relations. And, you know, one of the things that made Mr. Trump so attractive to so many people was that he was a fighter. He would stand up for American interests, even against China. And so I remind everybody that North Korea did not fly any test missiles during the Trump administration.
That's absolutely right, in fact. And while I speak to you, Orlando, let me also quickly take our viewers through all the latest that are coming, the updates that are coming in. On the right side of their screens, they can see there's Donald Trump seated, accompanied by his legal team. And that is the first image coming from inside the district attorney's office, as it seems, because now the process is on. It seems like he's already been taken to the courtroom where the arraignment is currently underway. But the image that you can see on the right side of your screen is from the DA's office, where he's been accompanied by his legal team. And as we were showing you, inside that room was Donald Trump. On the left side of your screen, where you can see there's heightened security and Secret Service accompanying the New York police as well. So that's the latest we are bringing to you. The arraignment is currently underway. This is going to be the most crucial part of today's arraignment. As far as the arraignment is concerned, the charges will field. There are 34 felony charges that we are looking at. And on that note, I will be bringing Orlando back into the conversation. Orlando, many Democrat strategists are in fact saying that once these felony charges are revealed, the case will perhaps gain more meat and will have more clarity, because so far we've only been questioning the merit in the case. But do you think that the felony charges, once revealed, will throw more light on sort of the meat that this case has?
No, I don't think so. And none of us knows what the indictment before it's unsealed will reveal. But the experts, and one of the nation's best experts is Professor Dershowitz, a Harvard law professor, who believes, number one, that Mr. Trump cannot get a fair trial in Manhattan. So he believes that the trial should be changed. Number two, he believes that the statute of limitations passed long time ago. And number three, even if this were to come to light, to a trial, which will not happen anytime soon, I think the charges are going to be very weak and very difficult to prove. And even if they do prove them, there's an appeal process that will take many years. By that time, Mr. Trump might be president of the United States again.
All right. And it seems that this is only working in his favor. Do you think that Donald Trump's being the smart capitalist that he's always been when he's trying to tap into the fundraising campaign? We've already seen his popularity soar in the polls of late. Will he be able to sustain this momentum that he's managed to garner through the media frenzy that's at the moment surrounding him?
You know, it's a very good question. I personally have been in politics in this country for 25 years. I've never seen anyone that commands media attention like Mr. Trump. As I said earlier, he's getting more attention than Mr. Putin, than Mr. Biden, than Deng Xiaoping. Mr. Trump knows how to manipulate and work the media to his advantage.
Right. And on the contrary, at least there is a Trump from the grand old party, which seems like an intimidating opponent for anybody from the Democrats. What is the feeling that you're getting from the Democrats? Many are questioning that there is a section within the Democrats who are anxious. Do you think they have reasons to be anxious?
Yes, they do. They have a lot of reasons to be anxious. Number one, I think the entire world knows that President Biden is advanced in age. His mental faculties are not what they used to be. This happens to everybody. This isn't taking advantage, or is getting advanced in age. Just the other day, it was recorded that he had to have help on the stage, pointing out where to stand, who he was going to meet. This is a man that falls constantly up the stairs to Air Force One. He's just not physically and perhaps mentally up to the job. Mr. Trump is sharp, he's fighting, he's aggressive, and he knows how to manage the media, and he's raising millions of dollars.
Right. There's a saying that, you know, if you live in a glass house, you do not pelt stones at others. Do you think that the Democrats are doing that because many have resurrected the cases as far as the Clintons are concerned? They've compared the case histories of Clintons with that of Donald Trump today, and I'm sure there are very many in the Democrat base. Would you say that that is one reason why this becomes a witch hunt?
That is correct. And I mentioned that earlier in the program. Unfortunately, American politics is becoming gotcha politics. Rather than focusing on the problems of the economy, international relations, border security, domestic violence, the plight of the poor, access to health care, we have problems just like every country in the world. Politicians in Washington are playing gotcha politics. Who can accuse whom of what? and how quickly can we get them indicted? And this is becoming a circus. I will remind you that John Edwards, former presidential candidate, was indicted, and eventually the charges were dropped for similar charges that they're trying to bring to Donald Trump. The former House Minority Leader, Tom DeLay, was charged in Texas by the Travis County, that's Austin, Texas, the Travis County District Attorney, and the charges were ultimately dropped. These are political cases. They're very difficult to prove. I still believe that Mr. Trump will either be acquitted or the charges will be dropped, and this just makes him a stronger candidate for the presidency in November of 2024.
Right, and I do hope that what you are predicting happens, but there is a section of the American population which cannot be overlooked, who are saying that Donald Trump deserves to face the full force of American justice if that does happen. And in case what you are predicting does not happen, and if he is convicted in even one of the cases, what will that mean for the grand old party? Because it so far seems that hopes have been pinned on this single candidate.
Well, I don't think it means anything for the grand old party, the GOP, the Republican Party. First of all, the Republican Party in the United States has a very beautiful history. It was founded in the 1800s in Wisconsin for one reason and one reason only: to end slavery in America. The Republican Party has fought for civil rights of all Americans. The party is not made up of one man. And we have had presidents. Richard Nixon was involved in the Watergate scandal. He had to resign. He was impeached. We've had President Clinton, who lost his law license. He was impeached. He was fined. And I still don't believe that the Manhattan District Attorney will prevail, will be successful in convicting Donald Trump of these very weak charges. But if he were, and assuming Mr. Trump was convicted, Mr. Trump is the entire Republican Party.
Right, fair enough. If he's not the entire Republican Party, but he is supposed to be the one who's supposed to be the most fierce candidate, especially when one were to compare him with the existing ones who've announced their presidency. The ones who are in the pipeline are expected to, but so far, even then, if you were to compare, you're looking at a person who's already been the former president, commands sufficient clout over the American population, as has been the case in the kind of public fascination that his own arraignment has gathered. Is this not going to be bad news for the GOP?
No, it's not going to be bad news, because the way the system works is that the nominee for president of the United States is the most popular Republican. So we know we have 5 or 6 running or intend to run for president of the United States, or at least seek their nomination from the Republican Party. That is, the Republican primary voters. That the Republicans that are polled are supporting Trump more and more each day. So this is increasing his ability, his popularity, and his fundraising capabilities. So right now, as of today, he would probably be considered the front runner.
All right. Many thanks to you, Orlando. I'm afraid I'm running short of time and I'll have to leave it at that. But it's been a very interesting conversation with you. And with that, let me introduce my next guest. I'm also joined in by Desiree Timms, who is a Democrat strategist. She's also the former Democratic congressional candidate from Ohio. And she's also the president and CEO of Innovation Ohio Congressman. And thank you so much, Desiree. I hope I got your introduction right.
I think you did okay.
All right. Thank you, Desiree, for joining in. But as I've been discussing with Democrats and Republican strategists, there seemed to be a very polarized view of what's happening today. It is historic, not just for the politics of the United States, but the justice system as well. But do you see more polarization happening as and when cases, there are more cases, because we know that this is just the beginning of Donald Trump's legal woes. There are more in the pipeline.
I absolutely think that this is going to be polarizing because we are also swinging into an election year for president. And we also know that President Joe Biden is running, former President Donald Trump has announced. And so there's this idea of a rematch in the face of litigation and charges that Donald Trump is facing. And be clear, Donald Trump has been indicted and facing charges for years. This is not news. It's just finally coming to fruition. And what this is showing and sharing to the world and the American people all here in this country.
Right. And when you say that, I will actually want to delve deeper into this in terms of what this means for the American justice system. In the meantime, I'm going to request you to continue staying with me. Let me quickly also go across to my correspondent who's very patiently awaiting outside the Manhattan criminal court, where Donald Trump is currently being arraigned. I am being told that the process has already begun. He is inside the courtroom. Remember, on top of the screen, you can see that there is the DA's office where Donald Trump was stationed. And right below that, you can see Donald Trump accompanied by his legal team. And soon after the official process of arraignment began inside the courtroom. Now, let me quickly go across to Erica. Erica, if you could take me through what is happening right now as far as the arraignment process is concerned, and in how much time should we expect Donald Trump to step out of the courthouse?
Of course. So Trump and his team have already arrived inside the courthouse. Trump, of course, being flanked by his lawyers. He has recently just pleaded not guilty to the 34 counts relating to fraud. However, arraignments typically aren't this long-winded process, so we should be expecting him out in a few hours' time, if not a little earlier than that, because he's slated to head back to Mar-a-Lago in Florida to give a statement of his own.
All right. And as far as the arraignment is concerned, exactly what should we be expecting? Should we now expect more information in terms of those felony charges? Will this in fact even be shared in public?
Well, the point of the indictment is to unseal those counts. So that is something that is going to be made public knowledge only after it has been unsealed. So whether or not that is going to shake the faith of Trump supporters who are gathered in front of the courthouse today remains to be seen, of course.
Right. And when we talk about the security on the ground level, we know that Donald Trump's also been accompanied by the Secret Service members. Having said that, there's heavy security from the staff of the New York Police Department. Could you take us through the security arrangements that you're witnessing right now?
Of course. So currently there are actually two helicopters of patrolling the area where the park and the criminal courthouse are. There is very heavy security surrounding both the park and in front of the courthouse, which you can see behind. Police have since formed two lines and have swelled in numbers earlier this morning. There are only a little, but after President Trump arrived from the Trump Tower to the courthouse, security was tightened even more.
All right, Erica, we'll keep coming back to you. And on that note, I would like to quickly go back to Desiree, who continues to stay with us. Desiree, the important question that one wants to now ask, how much in fact rests on today's arraignment and the upcoming cases as far as Donald Trump's fate for 2024 is concerned?
I think it's all about timing. I do believe that, and it's no surprise that former President Donald Trump pled not guilty to all of the counts. That was to be expected. But we also know that the process is a process here in this country. Even the evidence that was presented and made available to the grand jury may not necessarily be admissible in trial. And so there is going to be an entirely new process for going into trial. We also have the process of running for president, but the clock doesn't pause unless Donald Trump wins and he becomes president. Other than that, right now, he is a private citizen. I do think what we're seeing is unprecedented. And so a lot of people, myself included, we're all speculating because we don't know the true outcome in terms of how the chips may fall. But what we do know is it is setting a tone and a threshold that no one is above the law, and that includes the president of the United States. And so because Donald Trump, ironically, is now going to court for paying off debt, he's also been sued for not paying people. And so we're going to continue to see charges come. And what is happening in New York may be a precedent for other states who have claims against Donald Trump, as well as the Trump organization. More to come, but all of this is unprecedented and is unfolding right before our eyes.
Fair enough. There are going to be a sea of charges, but at the same time, many have questioned the merits of this case. They've said that the hush money payment made to the adult star Stormy Daniels is not the right kind of test example as far as a case is concerned to sort of arraign a former US president. Do you agree that the case lacks that technicality and clarity to arraign a former US president?
I don't think this case is about a former US president. I think it's about when people break the law, can they be held accountable? And certainly there are a number of people who look like me, who are brown, who are Black, who have been held accountable to the justice system. And so what the standard is setting is that, hey, just because you were president, you are now a private citizen, you are not protected or shielded from the justice system. And that is what we're seeing here at play.
But then that's when the Republicans have been crying foul and they've been calling it a witch hunt. And they've also said that the same legal parameters were not applied to the Clintons.
Well, the Republicans are going to do whatever they need to do in order to fall in line behind Donald Trump. We're also seeing extreme members of Congress like Marjorie Taylor Greene protest in New York. I have no idea why Marjorie Taylor Greene is in New York. We have plenty of work for her to do in Washington. And so we're seeing the extreme right sort of rally behind Donald Trump. And I want, as a political strategist and campaign operative, this is an opportunity for Donald Trump. He has competition in the Republican field. There's Ron DeSantis, there's former Governor Ashley. So what Donald Trump is doing, he's using all of this airtime, all of this press to continue raising money, to raise his profile, and to really shield himself from everything that happened during January 6th. So this is an opportunity for him to try to redeem himself and play victim. And so I think his campaign team, they're probably excited about what's happening right now because it is allowing Donald Trump to hone in his position as leader of the Republican Party here in the United States.
Barring a Mike Pence, we haven't heard a strong Republican voice come out in support of Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell, who's the Senate leader, has also chosen silence over words of support for the former president. Having said that, what does this indicate or speak of the grand old party as far as the consensus on Donald Trump is concerned?
Well, I think the leadership of the still very clear, despite Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's position, former Vice President Mike Pence's position. Donald Trump is still the leader. And it is very clear that he has whipped the right-wing voters and activists into his party, into his camp. And so, again, I think that this is an opportunity for Donald Trump to shore up the nomination. And he's also threatened that, hey, if I am not the nominee for president, I'm going to run third party. And the Republicans are afraid of that. If Donald Trump runs as a third party candidate and they have a Ron DeSantis or someone else as their candidate, the Democrats, my party, we will win because they're going to divide the vote. And so everything works in favor of the Democrats here, unless if you're a Republican, you fall in line behind Donald Trump, which is exactly what he wants right now.
Absolutely. But don't you think that he is being the capitalist that he's always been and has successfully managed to milk this kind of media frenzy and the media attention he's been getting because the fundraising campaign has been working in favor. Also, not to forget that the popularity levels have soared, something that's been indicated by the polls. What explains this?
That's exactly right. Within the first 48 hours of Trump's potential arraignment, he raised over $5 million for his campaign. That is something that is working well for the Trump camp and their team. We also know that he is getting support. People who have shied away from the former president after the January 6th insurrection on the US Capitol, they're suddenly coming back around. They're warming back up to Trump. And this is his opportunity to shore up the base and to lock up the people who were doubters and to get them right back in the fold to support his candidacy for president. He is getting a lot of free press. He's not paying for any of the media attention. Frankly, he's getting international press right now. And this is working to his favor. And so I think that he is thrilled with what's happening right now. The fact that this is, there were 30 counts, but we're looking at the unauthorized and illegal payments to Stormy Daniels. Some of those may be misdemeanors. And so this is working to his favor. And so he is definitely going to play his hand and use it to try to, run his way back into the White House.
Right.
If the Republicans allow him to do it.
Before I pose my second question to you, it's important to give in some breaking inputs to all our viewers right now. I'm learning from CNN sources that Donald Trump's indictment has been unsealed. So that means the arraignment is currently on. The indictment has been unsealed. We've been talking about those felony charges. 34 of them, as we are learning, have finally been unsealed, and after the arraignment we can perhaps expect them to be in public domain, and we will know and perhaps the case will be fleshed out better once those felony charges are in public domain and what those charges are, because remember the Republicans have been saying that this is foul play by the Democrats and that the case lacks meat and that it's not a strong case, it doesn't have clarity, but 34 is a huge number as far as those charges are concerned. Once these charges are revealed, we will have better knowledge of what this case is, how strong is it as far as Donald Trump is concerned. Let me quickly go back to Desiree. Desiree, you're talking about Donald Trump milking this to his advantage. Of course, the media frenzy has a role to play, and I do admit that we also have a role to play, but such is the clout that Donald Trump commands. Let's not forget that this is unprecedented. It's historic because never ever has a US president turned into a criminal defendant, a former US president. Having said that, Desiree, what is what are the Democrats doing about it? If there is a Donald Trump trying to milk this situation, shouldn't the Democrats also now turn up in full force to counter this kind of support that he's trying to rally through his supporter base and through various other Republicans as well, be it a George Santos or even Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Yeah, I think that the supporters that Donald Trump is trying to shore up are the same supporters who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. These are the same supporters that are trying to ensure that everyone has as many guns as they possibly can. We have babies and children being murdered almost every day by gun violence. These are the same supporters who voted against Donald Trump getting impeached for many of the crimes that he committed. And so I don't think as a Democrat, we want those supporters in our camp. We need to make sure that our people are out voting and out marching and protesting, that the justice system works for everybody as well. So again, I don't think that any of the supporters who are lining up behind Donald Trump would ever line up behind Democrats anyway. Those are certainly not the supporters our party is looking for. And I agree, this is absolutely unprecedented. And as I said earlier, and I'll say again, every single person on TV, we are all speculating because we haven't seen these the unsealed indictments, and so we're looking forward to looking
I'm sure
at
that we'll have those charges in public knowledge in just a bit from now. But having said that, Desiree, important to talk about this arraignment taking place in the Manhattan courthouse. Do you think that there could have been a different situation had this happened in a city which was not a blue base? We know that New York City is a blue base, and this is also a Democrat stronghold. Does that have some sort of bearing on the security situation and the heightened security that we are witnessing today?
Absolutely not. I think that's the Republicans playing politics when they say, "Oh, this is the Democrats and this is a witch hunt." That is all coded language that was also used by
No,
former
no, no.
President
I'm
Donald
talking about
Trump.
the
I
security.
don't.
No, no. I'm talking. Let me reiterate my question. I'd like to ask in terms of security situation. There was a lot of foreshadowing with regards to unrest in the city, which is something so far, by God's grace, has been controlled. Do you think that
Yeah.
the New York police and the overall administration in New York has to be credited for this?
I think that the police are necessary to ensure protests are done peacefully. We have that right here in this country to protest. I think Donald Trump supporters will protest. I think other people are going to protest the other way. I think the police in New York aren't Democrats. I don't know that every single police officer is a Democrat. So I don't think this is, again, politically motivated, but I do think security is necessary because President Donald Trump even called for protests last week on his social media website, Truth Social. He asked people to protest. This is the same thing he did during January 6th, leading up to the insurrection. And so I think that the city administration and officials are absolutely right to make sure that everyone is safe and protected in New York, and that police ensure the public safety is secured during this time.
All right, and as we speak, Desiree, I have some breaking inputs for all our viewers right now, and I'm going to quote it verbatim. The Ninth Circuit has just awarded Donald Trump an amount of $121,962.56 in attorney fee from Stormy Daniels. Now, the order has just been released. This, of course, as we are being told, is in addition to the roughly $500,000 that Stormy Daniels already owes Donald Trump. All right, this is the latest breaking input that we're bringing to you. This piece of information, as we know, has been tweeted out by Eric Trump, Donald Trump's son, and he's gone on to indicate that the Ninth Circuit has just awarded Donald Trump $121,000 in attorney fee from Stormy Daniels. We will get into the details of this, but there's a lot of public fascination. Don't just blame the media frenzy. We've been seeing, I think it works. It's a two-way street, you know. The media also caters to what the public wants to see, and explains why we've seen live footage of Donald Trump take off from Florida and land in New York, and then as we all have been tracking, the rest is history, from Trump Tower to now the Manhattan courthouse. What explains the public fascination for Donald Trump?
I mean, I've said this years ago. The man is entertaining, right? He's a marketing guru. He's been on TV for a very long time. I think he understands how the entertainment industry works, and I think he is the entertainer in chief. I have always said that, and I still think it is true today. What Eric Trump tweeted out and what's coming from the Ninth Circuit, this is true. It is also going to add more nuance to what's happening here in New York, given that it's the same subject matter in terms of it being related to Stormy Daniels. But I'd have to look at all of the documentation for myself to make a more educated opinion. But just my guess,
Fair
I think
enough.
everything's going to get a little more complex, and we'll see Donald Trump campaign and champion his innocence in Mar-a-Lago later tonight.
Right. And at the same time, we are also going to see Alvin Bragg address the press conference. From what we are learning, many have questioned the integrity of Alvin Bragg. How do you counter those questions that are being raised about the integrity of Alvin Bragg?
I don't think anyone's integrity should be compromised or attacked because they made a decision that, one political party disagrees with. The justice system is supposed to be a system that is fair, that applies the rule of law to every single person here in this country. And like I said, if it was a Black person or a brown person or an immigrant or someone who didn't speak English as their first language, they would have been held accountable a long, long time ago. And so we are just seeing the process of the justice system and the laws being applied to Donald Trump as a private citizen equally.
Right. And would you counter what Mike Pence had to say? He said that this goes on to send out a terrible message to all, as far as the justice system of the United States is concerned, it becomes no less than other dictatorships around the world. It makes the United States also into a dictatorial country. How do you counter that kind of argument that's being provided by Mike Pence?
One, I'm not surprised. I think, as to be expected, Vice President Pence is falling in line behind Donald Trump, even though, Donald Trump helped lead an insurrection that where his supporters and protectors said, hang Mike Pence. So, to be expected from that camp. What I do think is reject the idea that we are becoming a dictatorship. I think that we are becoming more diverse. People are expressing their concerns to protect democracy, and there's a political party and a certain faction that are trying to reassert their power over the majority. This is simply about the Republicans losing their grip on the majority of the American population and folks choosing to vote Democrat.
All right, and when we do draw comparisons with the Clintons, these comparisons have gone on to say that the impeachment was just a stunt. That's not the case that's being followed for Donald Trump. How do you give a rebuttal to that argument?
The impeachment was absolutely not a stunt. There were hearings held, there have been panels and committees, and everything has been made public about what President Trump did. Also communicating with the Georgia officials about how many votes he needed to try to overturn the election, the January 6th insurrection. The list goes on and on and on. And I think a lot of people, when they come from the business community and they transition into government, you can't run the country like you would run a there are services that people rely on, and you can't just do bad business deals and expect to get away with it. That's not how government works. That's not how our democracy works. And again, I think everyone is upset that Donald Trump is being held accountable. Nothing was done after the impeachment. In fact, he announced that he would run for president again. And so I wonder how much damage would have been done if he would have just stepped away from the public. But I think he just can't help himself.
There's a lot of focus on Donald Trump's electoral potency. Many are saying that this could just be a redux of 2016, when almost half of America was rooting for his presidency, and that's when he also managed to defeat Hillary Clinton. Do you see parallels with 2016?
Absolutely not. I think in 2016, people didn't know who Donald Trump was and what kind of president he would be. And then in 2020, the vast majority of Americans figured it out, got it right, and they voted for Joe Biden. And I think if anything, we're going to see a repeat of 2020. So in 2024, the vast majority of the American people will not vote for Donald Trump. They will vote for Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris again. Their policies are popular, and a lot of people are thrilled with the work that's being done from this administration. And let's not forget, after Donald Trump lost his election that January, he led an insurrection on the U.S. Capitol. After Donald Trump lost his election, he didn't even participate in the peaceful transfer of power. So we as the American people have been able to see exactly who Donald Trump is. And it's not the character and traits of a president. It is not.
All right. On that note, in fact, I'm also going to introduce my next guest. I'm joined in by a powerful voice from the Republican Party. I'm joined in by Mr. Bob McCuven, who is a former congressman and Republican, former member of the House Intel Committee. He was a member of the United States House of Representatives from Southern Ohio's 6th District. Many thanks to you, Bob, for joining in on today's discussion. I know you've been quite an asset and an articulate voice for the Grand Old Party, so it's a complete honor to have you here today. We've been hearing voices from both ends of the spectrum. I was speaking to Desiree, who's also made some very valid and eye-opening points over here today. There's a lot of focus on how polarized the United States is today. What do you make of what's happening as far as today's arraignment is concerned? It's unprecedented, yes, historic for sure, but what will this mean for both political ends of the spectrum, whether the Democrats or the Grand Old Party? Let me begin with Donald Trump's fate of 2024. Bob, can you hear me?
You wish to hear from, is he speaking?
No, yes, Bob. This question is for you. What will today's arraignment mean?
What does the arraignment mean? Well, it means it's really an unbelievably shocking dissertation, somewhat like you've just heard the speaker just before me, making these various charges of a man is guilty until proven innocent. The fact is that the Democrats very disappointed that the country rejected Mrs. Clinton, and as he restored America's strength, the median income had been standard for 20 years, began to grow massively, $6,300 the first 2 years alone. America's strengthened around the world, and that made a great frustration to them. So they had this hoax that somehow or another he was elected by the Russians, and they spent $45 million in 3 years of investigation already, came up with nothing, absolutely nothing. Now here they are trying to do it again because they fear that at the ballot box, the American people will choose him. And so they're now accusing him of something that is just, it's going to be thrown out. But the process of forcing him to go into the courthouse in order to prove his innocence is what their goal is. And it's, as you said, we've never done this in America before. This is the frustration of a political party that has proven to be a disaster economically, with inflation the highest in 40 years, militarily, the collapse of the military. People will not join American military, with the collapse of the city, with the fentanyl and the 100,000 deaths from the border. It's unbelievable, the sense of frustration that the American people feel towards this government. Therefore, they're turning their energies against Mr. Trump and trying to pretend as though he did something. He's being charged, get this, he's being charged with miscalculating a presentation on his own balance sheet. This isn't a public company. This is his own company. They said that he put the charge in the wrong column. Now, that, of course, will be thrown out over time, but it'll take a year to do so, and the Democrats will have smeared and embarrassed the nation and our political system by this atrocious activity that, as you said, is unprecedented. Never before has a losing party behaved that.
It was still campaign funds, but it was still campaign fund money, right? But I like the way.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was 10 years before he decided to run for office, and it was not campaign money at all. And it was not. It had nothing to do with the campaign. And the Democrats tried to do this 2 years ago, and the Federal Elections Commission looked into it and said there's nothing here. So no, this is a man. This is a corrupt man who ran for office saying, I don't know what we'll get him for, but if you will elect me as the district attorney, I will get Donald Trump. That's the situation. And they have absolutely nothing otherwise. So it's he'll be proven innocent. There's no doubt about it. This is only a political effort that is what third world countries do. And it's happened in the city of New York, and it's a travesty, to say the least.
All right, but I don't know if it would be fair to say that this is something you only get to see in third world countries, because the Democrats are saying that this is a moment, a historic moment for the American justice system. Having said that,
yes.
Having said that, okay, it's interesting to see how vociferous you've been in your support for Donald Trump, but I don't see that kind of same vocal support coming from other senior Republicans. Mitch McConnell has remained mum. Mike Pence was the only voice which in fact stepped out in support. There are other potential strong Republicans who could have stepped out. All right, we have some live visuals as we speak. Bob, I'm going to request you to continue staying with me. I do see Donald Trump step out. It seems like Donald Trump has stepped out of the courtroom. Those are the latest live shots that we are bringing to you. He's been accompanied by his legal team. He seems to be heading back inside the district attorney's office. Remember, just a while ago, he stepped out of the district attorney's office, and this is when the process of his fingerprinting began. Of course, we are being told that there has been no mugshot, but soon after he was taken to the courtroom where the arraignment happened. That means that the arraignment process is now coming to a conclusion, which also goes on to indicate that the charges have already been unsealed and are now information that has already been shared with Donald Trump's legal team. Let me quickly go back to Bob, who continues to stay with us. Bob, please answer my question. Why haven't we heard more strong and vocal, prominent voices from within the grand old party come out in full support of Donald Trump?
Because the charges were only opened about 15 minutes ago. And so we do know the person that did it, and that is a man and another attorney general who ran for attorney general in New York. And so we'll probably hear from her too, in which she said, regardless of what's being done to the city, as you know, New York was the safest major city in the world just 6 years ago. Once they come in, and this ambassador, this district attorney said that if you want to urinate on the sidewalk, if you want to sleep on the subway, we're not going to enforce the law. And so there's been a collapse of the law. We've seen a skyrocketing in carjackings and all the rest. And so, but his focus is not on doing his job. His focus was on going after Donald Trump. And so you heard this, the speaker just before me, in which she tried to bring race into it, is that if somebody else had been president of the United States, he would have gone after them. It's appalling what she said and what this district attorney is doing. And that is that they have nothing, has never happened that they would accuse a man of what he's been accused here. And I repeat, you're going to see it. He's going to be acquitted, but that wasn't the goal. The goal was to do what's happening as we see right here, to take him and hold him up as though
Bob, I'm really sorry to interrupt you there. I do see Donald Trump step out of the district attorney's office again. All right, those were the older visuals, but I can see the motorcade is gearing up. It seems like Donald Trump should be stepping out of the courthouse any time from now. Bob, I'll let you, in fact, finish what you were saying. It's forgive me, but I have to also keep my viewers abreast with the latest that's happening over there as we are getting more visuals pouring in.
And it's just a shame, because here we have a man who 75 million Americans chose to be their leader, and he's protected by the Secret Service, and yet you have this corrupt district attorney who's trying to make a name for himself. Not by the chaos.
I'm sorry to interrupt you over there, Bob, but I can see Donald Trump's motorcade now heading out of the courthouse as Donald Trump's now leaving court after arraignment. I'm going to request you, Bob, to continue staying with me. There's a lot that we need to discuss at the moment, because I believe the legal game for Donald Trump has just begun. And let me bring in Erica on that note. Erica, what is the status on the ground level? Has Donald Trump now stepped outside, or because we do see some movement over there as far?
Yes, Trump has exited the courtroom, and he is on his way to the motorcade, the 11-car motorcade that he was accompanied by, flanked by Secret Service federal agents, and he's going to make his way out.
All right. So there's a confirmation coming from Erica that Donald Trump is all set to now leave the courthouse. That we've been talking about has been completed. What comes out of that unsealed envelope which was carrying those 34 felony charges will now be perhaps shared in public domain, but that's the latest we are bringing to you as the security on ground level outside the courthouse, and as far as the Trump Towers are concerned, has been beefed up completely. The New York police has been on their toes, avoiding any potential unrest that could take place. Let me bring in Bob on that note. Bob, there has been a lot of foreshadowing of unrest. There's been fear psychosis at play as well. Many are drawing parallels or are referring back to the January Capitol Hill riots of 2021. Is that just fear psychosis at play, or are these concerns genuine? It does seem like the ghosts of the past are back to haunt Donald Trump today.
Well, it's the ghost of the Democrat Party trying to succeed what they cannot deliver in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or any other state in which they're in control. So what they do is they attack and they make these various charges. And so what they claim And I was just on the floor of the House just 72 hours ago. Now that the Republicans have taken control in the Congress, and they took down all the fences and they took down the magnetometers, they took all this paraphernalia that they were making. They would not allow people into the people's house, into the Capitol. They made members of Congress go through magnetometers. All of this insurrection nonsense that they keep talking about, that they try to pretend. It's a tragedy that they are willing to sacrifice their own reputations and the reputation of our country by making these various charges. So this is I think we're going to see whether or not this is profitable. It's a serious time for America, but I think that the nation is going to recognize that this is an absolute use of the judicial system to achieve political goals. And if there ever was a mark about the United States of America, it never did that before. We're seeing it done, and hopefully that the American people will respond accordingly. And the founders of our nation said our Constitution was made for a moral and a religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And so when you have an absolute thug run for district attorney saying, I'm going to get a person, like Beria did under Stalin, that you show me the person, I'll invent the crime. And so he's made this thing that these charges against himself, which nobody even considered. Even he rejected 2 years ago, but now he's brought him back, and it'll be for the purpose to drag this thing out for months and months and months. Nothing's going to happen for the months ahead, but it's just going to be an effort to say that he has been indicted. He's been indicted.
Right.
And the
having
sad
said
part
that,
is
Bob,
that
having said that,
teeter-totters.
Bob,
goes both
Donald Trump
ways.
has been fundraising for weeks. And to what extent will this only sort of galvanize his Make America Great Again movement? Because let's not forget that that seemed to have lost steam, but it's back to now picking up momentum thanks to the fundraising, which is also picking up momentum. Credit the media frenzy that's surrounding Donald Trump's arraignment today.
Well, the situation, you would think, you see that India,
all right,
along with
as we
18 other
speak,
countries,
Bob,
have
I'm sorry
chosen
to interrupt you again. I have to update my viewers. I can see Donald Trump stepping out of the Manhattan courthouse and getting inside the motorcade, and there you see it. Donald Trump just been arraigned. It is a big day, not just for the politics of the United States, but also the justice system. A former US president turned criminal defendant has been arraigned. The arraignment has just been completed in the Manhattan courthouse. As we see the former president Donald Trump now take off from the courthouse, and in just some time from now, he will be headed towards Florida. Those are the visuals that we are playing to you again of Donald Trump stepping out from the criminal court in Manhattan amid heightened security. He's been accompanied by Secret Service, also the New York Police Department. We've seen the process. We showed you he was accompanied by his legal team as well, as he visited the district attorney's office first and then was headed towards the courtroom. The arraignment is finally over. That means the 34 felony charges have finally been handed over to the former US president. Whether or not those charges now make it to public knowledge is something we'll have to wait and watch. But all of New York City remains on high alert. There's a lot of security, not just outside the Manhattan courthouse, but also outside Trump Tower, where he is expected to be headed now and soon over to Mar-a-Lago, where he will be also addressing a press conference in a brief while from now. A big day for the United States, historic as most of US media is calling it. Never ever in the history have we seen a former US president being arraigned. You can see that is the heavy motorcade, almost 7 to 8 cars accompanying Donald Trump right now as he heads towards Trump Towers. It was a routine exercise, but several concessions granted to the former president. As we know, that the man was not handcuffed. Only fingerprinting took place. We've also learned that perhaps there was no mugshot taken of the former US president. But as far as the arraignment is concerned, he was handed over that sealed envelope which carried 34 felony charges. The booking by the investigators including the fingerprints, happened shortly before he entered the courtroom. Now, that is the motorcade. Let's quickly, in fact, I'm going to request Bob to continue staying with me. Let me take a quick update from Erica. Erica, we've seen Donald Trump finally make that exit from the courthouse. Do you see the supporters still over there? What is the situation on ground level now?
The supporters are actually still gathered in the park in front of the courthouse. In fact, just a few moments before you tossed to me, there were cheers of people, the pro-Trump supporters, chanting Trump's name and waving their flags. So now that Trump has left, it appears that the crowd is going to be dispersing. But as he was exiting his motorcade, he was met by cheers from his supporters.
All right. And what is going to be Donald Trump's plan of action now? Should we now expect him to take off for Florida in any time from now?
Well, one thing I will say is that he is slated to speak from Mar-a-Lago in Florida and make his own statement. What's curious, though, is that his advisors expected him to speak prior as he arrived in court. However, it's not something that he did. We can also expect a statement from Alvin Bragg following this proceeding.
Right. And I believe that is going to happen at the Manhattan courthouse in any time from now. Let me quickly go back to Bob, who's been patiently awaiting his turn. Thank you for your patience, Bob. But as you just heard my reporter give us that lowdown on all those Trump supporters, it clearly seems like the arraignment is only working in favor of Donald Trump. Does that also go on to say that the Democrats are lacking a strong strategy in terms of countering this kind of popularity that he's amassing through this arraignment?
Well, they've decided to go with this activity, as we've all understood, never happened before in history, but they're not finished. And you're going to see the Attorney General in New York, and I was just earlier on the television station, they were discussing these businesses. There were certain places that they will not do business, and they will not do business in New York anymore, or New Jersey, or in California. But they go to the free states of Texas and Florida. The corruption that's taken place there, you're going to hear from the Attorney General. You're going in New York, and she's going to file charges. They have chosen that what they can't achieve at the ballot box and in the support of the electorate, they're going to try to do on a criminal basis, which I repeat, this is what happens in third world countries. This is what Central America does repeatedly. And they've chosen to do that. You're going to see Donald Trump charged by Democrat prosecutors 2 or 3 more times over the next year. They've chosen to go down this path. And I pray for the benefit of freedom and America's future that they are resoundingly defeated this time next year.
For that section of population which believes that Donald Trump will face the full force of American justice, and if he is convicted, what will this mean for the future of the Grand Old Party in terms of the 2024 presidential campaign and the race?
Well, the possibility of him being convicted is just, well, he could be convicted possibly in a New York court in the short run, but the charges are so absurd that, as I repeat, the Congress spent 2.5 years and $45 million and 150 FBI agents going through everything that he's ever done. 11 million pieces of paper, and on and on and on. They haven't come up with anything. What they charged him with today was something that took place 10 years before he even ran for office in his own business. And so even if he were being convicted by a rogue jury in DC, by the time you get it appealed, it would be thrown out, because it's just an act of well, it's just irresponsible. So it won't impact. Everyone will see it for what it is. The only question is, does it help him politically, or will some other Republican step in? Because the Democrat Party, having seen what they've done to a country that was just 2.5 years ago was energy independent, and now we've drained all of our strategic petroleum reserve and being whipped around by the Saudis, who now said they won't use the American dollar, on and on. When you see the collapses taking place with these incompetent leaders in Washington at the moment, the Biden administration and the lady that you had on earlier, you see that the American, they don't want to fight on their record. They don't want to say what they've done to our defenses, what they've done in Ukraine, what they've done in Afghanistan, what they've done to the American dollar, what they've done in energy. So only thing they can do is to play this third world game of attacking Donald Trump. And the only question is whether or not which of the Republicans will benefit most. But I don't think it's going to help the Democrat Party in this desperate act after 246 years of American independence to go down this terribly embarrassing.
And that reminds me,
road.
Bob, I was viewing a video of yours where you had, it was years ago, almost a decade ago, when you spoke about the strengths of the United States. You spoke about the army that the US has or can boast of in terms of even energy. You said that all that the United States lacked was the right kind of leadership. Even if one were to talk about Donald Trump's presidency, which he won in 2016, do you think he was that kind of leader that your country needed?
Let me just tell you, only twice in all of recorded history, in my judgment, has a person changed the geopolitical outlay of the planet without a war. And the first one was Ronald Reagan, who was able to collapse the Soviet Union without a fight. And the second one was 6 years ago. The entire world was moving towards America's economy was flat. The Chinese economy was growing at 6, 8, and 9%. It was on the process of becoming the strategic power in the world, and everybody becoming dependent. And Donald Trump said, "I'm not sure this is the best thing to do." And he went to Mercedes and said, "You can't build a Mercedes car without their approval." He went to Samsung. He said, "Koreans, you can't make a refrigerator without what is going." And with that, the world began to awaken, and factories began to move into Vietnam and elsewhere. China, India began to prosper. The stock market in China went down 47% in the 4 years Donald Trump was president. The stock market in America went up 55%. And the entire world is awakened to the threat that China is economically, politically, and militarily. Now, that to me is the only time, other than Ronald Reagan, that the entire world is a totally different place today than it was 6 years ago because of the leadership of Donald Trump. Now, for the people who put trillions of dollars from New York, collected all over Americans, sent it to China, they're mad. They are really, really mad, because now they're going to have to compete in the world, because the world's not going to be the way that it was, where they were ripping off Main Street America and making and pocketing the difference.
When you say that,
he changed all that.
Right. He changed all that. It also seems like there's a strong contrast in the foreign policy approach of the former president versus the current president of the United States. We've seen China capitalize on the US withdrawal in the Gulf. We've also seen the United States take some very impulsive steps when it comes to the war in Ukraine. Do you think that this could have been avoided if there was a different president, even if it was not Donald Trump?
Only 100% do I believe that. On the day that Joe Biden became president, on that very day, China began to probe the airspace of Taiwan. Now, if the United States and the free world were leaders, they would have stood together at the United Nations and said, "Stop it." But because there was no American leadership, and in the chaos, China began to do more and more and more, until now they're flying virtually at eye level with strategic bombers. I can continue this all throughout South China Sea, examples of protruding against Philippine water spaces, as well as Indonesia, etc. Because of a lack of leadership from America, the entire world is less safe. And the ultimate, of course, is what happened in Afghanistan. And you can rest assured, I'll say it again, you can be absolutely certain that if Joe Biden were not president of the United States, the Ukrainians would not have their cities being bombed at this moment. So that's what happens when we elect these people, and they cannot run on their record. They cannot run on the fact that America was energy independent just 30 months ago and now is begging for oil. So what do they have to do? They have to go back to Donald Trump, accuse him of all kinds of things. The lady that was on just before me accusing him of racism. What a pathetic cry from people that are unable to lead.
All right. Many thanks to you, Bob. for sharing your precious inputs with us. I'm afraid I'm running short of time and we'll have to leave that discussion over there. But you've made some very powerful observations over there. And with that, let me in fact end with some breaking inputs that we are getting in right now. As I was informing you, Donald Trump's arraignment is over and the next hearing has been scheduled for December 4th. This is going to happen in New York as of now. And the next in-person hearing for the former President Donald Trump is set for December 4th. The historic indictment against President Donald Trump has been unsealed and is now public. Let me quickly go across to Erica for the latest. Erica, some very crucial information awaiting as far as those 34 felony charges. Please take us through the latest.
Yes, what I will tell you is that a group of Trump lawyers gathered outside of the Manhattan Criminal Court and are currently being interviewed by a flurry of media outlets. We were not able to get close enough to hear what they have to say, but it's the thing that remains to be seen. Early reports say that the unsealing of the indictment shows that the rule of law in this country, so they are protesting Trump's indictment. On this side, you can see the roads have since opened up because the former president is en route back to Trump Tower.
All right. Thank you so much, Erica, for bringing in those inputs. I thoroughly appreciate your time given to us. But for all our viewers, before I quickly end, this is the latest that we're bringing to you. December 4th is going to be the next in-person hearing for Donald Trump. Those charges have now been made public. This is what the prosecutors are alleging. Let me read that out verbatim to you, that Donald Trump was part of an unlawful plan to suppress negative information, including an illegal payment of $130,000 that was ordered by the defendant to suppress the negative information that could potentially hurt his campaign. This is the first time Trump and his lawyers can fully examine the extent of these charges now against him, and what prosecutors must prove is going to be decided following the unsealing of these charges. The reason he committed the crime of falsifying business records was in part to promote his candidacy. This is what the indictment says. The criminal charges stem from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's investigation made during the 2016 presidential campaign to women who claimed that he had extramarital affairs with Trump, which he denies. Now, Trump denies all the wrongdoing, and Judge Juan Merchan said he would not issue a gag order to prevent Donald Trump or his attorneys from speaking publicly about the case. That means that Trump can continue to use his platform to say whatever he likes about the case. And District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who Trump called an animal in a post on his social media platform. Now, as far as the press conferences are concerned, expect Donald Trump and Alvin Bragg both to speak out to the public. For now, it brings me to the end of our live coverage on Donald Trump's arraignment. Thank you so much for being part of this live coverage on CNN News 18. there be any concessions that are expected to be given to Donald Trump?
Okay, well, fingerprints will be taken, so they are following that standard. However, he is not expected to be handcuffed. He is a former president, so of course a very high profile figure, like you said. So he is going to be surrounded by federal agents at all times. That's the Secret Service. She's going to have swarms of that with him, so he won't be handcuffed. And like I said earlier, there are much more police than there have been this morning, so it definitely seems like the security levels are absolutely amped up. You know, all activity over here in the Manhattan Criminal Court has been halted in preparation for his arrival.
Absolutely. Erica, then we talk about, Donald Trump trying to preserve his dignity through this historic moment as it is, unfortunately, for Trump. The fact is that he is the first former US president to be arraigned. But having said that, the question that comes to mind is, while he's also preserving his dignity, he may just be bringing positive publicity to the grand old party, because we've seen a lot of Democrats, send out some very cautious messages. Most of them, in fact, have chosen to stay mum. Even President Joe Biden has used some very measured words where he said that he doesn't want to go out in public and talk about it very openly.
Yes, well, like you said, President Joe Biden has decided to say very little in this case. He has, however, expressed his faith in the New York Police Department. The New York Police Department emphasized in a statement that they want to ensure that everybody is able to peacefully practice, exercise their rights, including the right to protest. But like you said,
the Democrat Party in this desperate act after 240.
Inputs. I thoroughly appreciate your time given to us. But for all our viewers, before I quickly end, this is the latest that we're bringing to you. December 4th is going to be the next in-person hearing for Donald Trump. Those charges have now been made public. This is what the prosecutors are alleging. Let me read that out verbatim to you, that Donald Trump was part of an unlawful plan to suppress negative information, including an illegal payment of $130,000 that was ordered by the defendant to suppress the negative information that could potentially hurt his campaign. This is the first time Trump and his lawyers can fully examine the extent of these charges now against him, and what prosecutors must prove is going to be decided following the unsealing of these charges. The reason he committed the crime of falsifying business records was in part to promote his candidacy. This is what the indictment says. The criminal charges stem from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's investigation made during the 2016 presidential campaign to women who claimed that he had extramarital affairs with Trump, which he denies. Now, Trump denies all the wrongdoing, and Judge Juan Merchan said he would not issue a gag order to prevent Donald Trump or his attorneys from speaking publicly about the case. That means that Trump can continue to use his platform to say whatever he likes about the case. And District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who Trump called an animal in a post on his social media platform. Now, as far as the press conferences are concerned, expect Donald Trump and Alvin Bragg both to speak out to the public. For now, it brings me to the end of our live coverage on Donald Trump's arraignment. Thank you so much for being part of this live coverage on CNN News 18.
the Democrat Party in this desperate act after 246 years of American independence to go down this terribly embarrassing,
and that reminds
horrible
me,
road.
Bob, I was viewing a video of yours where you had, it was years ago, almost a decade ago, when you spoke about the strengths of the United States. You spoke about the army that the US has or can boast of in terms of even energy. You said that all that the United States lacked was the right kind of leadership. Even if one were to talk about Donald Trump's presidency, which he won in 2016, do you think he was that kind of leader that your country needed?
Let me just tell you, only twice in all of recorded history, in my judgment, has a person changed the geopolitical outlay of the planet without a war. And the first one was Ronald Reagan, who was able to collapse the Soviet Union without a fight. And the second one was 6 years ago. The entire world was moving towards America's economy was flat. The Chinese economy was growing at 6, 8, and 9%. It was on the process of becoming the strategic power in the world, and everybody becoming dependent. And Donald Trump said, "I'm not sure this is the best thing to do." And he went to Mercedes and said, "You can't build a Mercedes car without their approval." He went to Samsung. He said, "Koreans, you can't make a refrigerator without." What is going? And with that, the world began to awaken, and factories began to move into Vietnam and elsewhere. China, India began to prosper. The stock market in China went down 47% in the 4 years Donald Trump was president. The stock market in America went up 55%. And the entire world is awakened to the threat that China is economically, politically, and militarily. Now, that to me is the only time, other than Ronald Reagan, that the entire world is a totally different place today than it was 6 years ago because of the leadership of Donald Trump. Now, for the people who put trillions of dollars from New York, collected all over Americans, sent it to China, they're mad. They are really, really mad, because now they're going to have to compete in the world, because the world's not going to be the way that it was, where they were ripping off Main Street America and making and pocketing the difference.
When you say that,
he changed all that.
Right. He changed all that. It also seems like there's a strong contrast in the foreign policy approach of the former president versus the current president of the United States. We've seen China capitalize on the US withdrawal in the Gulf. We've also seen the United States take some very impulsive steps when it comes to the war in Ukraine. Do you think that this could have been avoided if there was a different president, even if it was not Donald Trump?
Only 100% do I believe that. On the day that Joe Biden became president, on that very day, China began to probe the airspace of Taiwan. Now, if the United States and the free world were leaders, they would have stood together at the United Nations and said, "Stop it." But because there was no American leadership, and in the chaos, China began to do more and more and more, until now they're flying virtually at eye level with strategic bombers. I can continue this all throughout South China Sea, examples of protruding against Philippine water spaces, as well as Indonesia, etc. Because of a lack of leadership from America, the entire world is less safe. And the ultimate, of course, is what happened in Afghanistan. And you can rest assured, I'll say it again, you can be absolutely certain that if Joe Biden were not president of the United States, the Ukrainians would not have their cities being bombed